Hope you're all having a good Esri Developer and Technology Summit. Thank you for joining us. Today we are going to present to you location enabling your applications for increasing value. So we're going to explore a variety of applications that can be used or that can be built using ArcGIS Location Platform. And we're going to demonstrate some location-based solutions. We're going to use different technologies, different mapping libraries, and location services. So let's go ahead and get started. As you've seen in, I'm sure, other sessions, please share your feedback in the app. We really appreciate it. It just takes, a couple minutes maybe? So yeah, thank you so much. All right, so we'll quickly introduce ourselves. I'm Courtney Yato, and I am a developer advocate here at Esri. I've been at Esri for 2.5 years now. And yeah, I enjoy very much. I help raise awareness of our SDKs and APIs. I do that, through conferences, through social media, and other things. So that's me. And Russell, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Russell Sands. I'm a senior solution engineer on our commercial sector team. And in my sort of day-to-day, I typically work with other large technology companies who are either using Esri software for internal purposes or, more often than not, building solutions that integrate with or extend through ArcGIS Location Platform.
Nice. Awesome. Okay, so here is our agenda for the day. So we are going to go through generally what our ArcGIS Location Platform is, so a bit of an overview. And then we've got some demos that we're going to go through. And throughout those demos, we're going to be mentioning a couple location services and then showing a demo that works with one or more of those services. And then at the end, we'll have a little bit of a wrap up and Q&A. So let's get started. Okay, so ArcGIS Location Platform. Before I talk about what it is, who knows what it is? How many of us are familiar with it? Yeah? Awesome. Okay. So if you are unfamiliar with it, it provides a set of mapping and location services to developers in really an on-demand experience in a form that developers definitely come to expect. So it's made up of 3 high-level elements, as we see here on the screen. So we've got our general developer experience to help developers be successful by giving them access to our APIs and the ability to use open source libraries. Then we have location services, and these are the same underlying services that get used by our other products. We've just made it easier for developers to actually access them and integrate them into their applications. And then finally, we have our consumption-based business model. So it really is a transparent and easy model to understand. That's consumption-based, meaning you only pay for what you use. And generally, when you start out, there is a generous free tier. And you can see, I'm not going to worry about showing the site, but if you are unfamiliar with it, you can go to location.arcgis.com and see that free tier and all the other different things that come with your location platform account. Okay. So, comprehensive developer experience. So all of this tooling is brought to you through a comprehensive experience, and it's designed to make you successful. So we give you things like developer guides, tutorials, many APIs and SDKs to choose from. We have API references. We've got tons of samples. And basically all of those things I just described are on developers.arcgis.com. So that is separate from location.arcgis.com. That's where you handle your account stuff versus developers.arcgis.com is where you actually get all of the good stuff in terms of how you interact with our services and how you learn how to use our services. And actually many of our services, I'm not sure if you were in plenary this morning, but many of our services, at least the newer ones, do follow the Open API specification as well. and a demo that Anita did on stage. You can, if for some reason we don't have an API or SDK that follows a specific language that you use, for instance, she showed Rust, you can generate that. And so no matter what product that you use or have used, like our software through ArcGIS Pro or Enterprise, or our SaaS products through ArcGIS Online, or PASS, which is our location platform, you do have a general common developer experience. All right. So with ArcGIS Location Platform, you have access to specific location services, and there are some that are specific to ArcGIS Location Platform. So we've got our base maps, we've got data hosting, data visualization, lots of different things that you would commonly expect to see, like geocoding and routing. And then you can go even further with things like spatial analysis. All right, and this obviously is the same slide, but these services are not static, right? They're constantly being updated with the latest and greatest things. We are adding new services all the time. So some of the new services that we have, like say for instance, I'm going to show an example with the base maps. We have the new static base map tiles service. We also have a new static map service that is now in beta. I won't be showing a demo on that, but that is pretty new. It just came out a couple weeks ago, I believe. Yeah. So we've got lots of different new services. I'm going to be showing some to you today. And yeah, I think that's about it. Do you want to add anything to that slide?
No, I think that was great.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good. All right. Okay, so these services can be used in many different deployment patterns. So including the web, desktop, indoors, outdoors, online, offline. And additionally, we have regionally hosted all of these services in data centers around the world, so you can get really the best performance out of them. Okay, so now let's get into the specific services. So we're going to start with geocoding and search, which obviously is the ability to find addresses and points of interest. And it's a really common, one of the most common services that we offer in a mapping app, of course. Now, our geocoding service is powered by industry-leading reference data that does come from multiple authoritative sources. So we've got commercial data providers, and government agencies, and our network of partners around the world. So it's pretty powerful because it comes from lots of different sources there. And this ensures that you do get the most accurate results, the most accurate search results. And this service also does support local languages and different address formats too, which is nice. And when I talk about our geocoding service, I always like to mention our suggest feature. It's always kind of a nice one because it's I believe it's free, right? Essentially, I don't think we charge for it. It's kind of like a hidden gem type thing that, yeah. So the actual, when you're, typing in a search bar, the suggestions that you get, unless you actually geocode that location, the suggestions come back to you for free. All right. So, next thing. Routing and directions. Okay. So this includes obviously the ability to get turn-by-turn directions. And in addition to your common point-to-point routing, you do have the ability to route multiple vehicles to multiple different destinations. You also have the ability to optimize your routes for whatever factors may be attributing to your travel mode. And then the router also will take into consideration current traffic conditions and restriction types, right? So we have a lot of different operations within the routing service, right? The routing, it's funny because the routing service has so many different parts to it. I almost like to call each of them their own services. Technically, that's not the right terminology though. So, yeah. And so we do have several different ones. I didn't say all of them here, but one of the ones that I do want to talk about is the last mile delivery service, or see, look, I just did it now. The last mile delivery operation within our routing service. So this is new. I believe it's new as of out of beta for a couple of weeks now, maybe. I'm not totally sure when it. Anyways, pretty.
New in the last year.
There you go. Yeah, definitely. I thought it was really new. So, okay. So let me try to describe this to you as best as I can. So imagine that you have a busy city, so like an urban area, right, where deliveries really does count. So our last mile delivery operation is engineered to transform this kind of chaos into a smooth, efficient operation. And it does really focus on that last mile. And it's not necessarily a literal mile. It's just, getting those packages to the final destination. And I say packages, doesn't have to be packages, but it's all about that final destination there. So I've got a few bullet points. Yeah. So optimize routes and clusters. So you can think of it as having a smart navigation system. So instead of sending drivers on long, like winding routes and stuff, our operation does calculate the most efficient paths. So it groups nearby stops together. So a driver can complete several deliveries in just one go, saving time and energy. All right, and it can adjust to real-time things that are happening, right? So obviously, urban environments are constantly changing. So whether it's like sudden traffic issues, road closures, or maybe a driver calls in sick, you're able to handle adjustments in such a way with our operation that you can account for those things. So, say you had a plan of 5 drivers, and each one's going to be able to drive for so many hours or whatever. One calls in sick, well, then you have to adjust for that. And then it'll optimize the best routes for each of them to still get those final deliveries to them as quickly as possible. And there is also a cost savings kind of element to it as well. I've mentioned the time a bit, but yeah, by optimizing routes and making real-time tweaks, we do significantly reduce unnecessary mileage and ideal time. So fewer detours means lower fuel costs, right? And less wear and tear on the vehicles. And then last thing is your customer satisfaction. Of course, that's really important. So, at the end of the day, that really is what matters, is getting the customers what they need for that final delivery there, if it's a delivery. So yeah, together, all of these elements, the efficient routing, dynamic adjustments, all of that, they do create a robust solution together to get everything where it needs to go. Okay, so that's like the general overview of what last mile delivery entails. So I do have a little demo to show you. And since this is such a new delivery, I just went ahead and used the one that we just recently released on our site here. So let's go ahead and take a look at this demo in action. And I wonder if I could zoom in a little bit more. Yeah, it doesn't do the best at handling zoom, but hopefully that's okay. All right. Okay, so we're going to start by looking at this demo in action. So here we can see a map of San Francisco, and the routes are already optimized and clearly displayed. And I can even better clearly display them by hitting this Highlight All Routes button. Okay, so it shows our central depot here, which is the warehouse, along with the various routes, and they connect 74 different deliveries. These routes have been calculated to minimize travel time and maximize efficiency, like I was saying. And so over here in the right-hand panel, I've already mentioned a couple things. We do see the different routes that the 5 different drivers are taking. And so each one of them they each have a different number of orders here, but it has obviously, like I said, been optimized for kind of the best route for each of them, based on also other factors. Say some may have different times that they could drive for. In this case, we have it set to a maximum route time of 1 hour for each of them, but the operation does have the ability to adjust that, individually for each driver. And these are just a few of the different options that you could set. So you've got the number of vehicles, the max route time, the start time. There are several other parameters you could set as well. And of course, you could explore our documentation to see more of those. All right, so now just for fun, let's adjust this to 3 vehicles. There we go. All right, so now when I adjusted to 3 vehicles, that's the only parameter that I changed. So it's still max route time of 1 hour. We've still got the same start time there of 5 a.m. So what happened is it still tried to optimize the deliveries as much as it could, but it was only able to, with 3 drivers, get 56 out of the 74 done there. So you could then say, okay, well, maybe we had to drop it down to 3 because 2 of my delivery drivers are out for whatever reason. Maybe then now I have to make my drivers do a little bit more time. So we adjust it to 2 hours, and then hopefully that fixes the problem. Which it did. Nice. Okay. Yeah. So again, there's so many different parameters you could play with. You can check out our documentation here, either the REST API reference or the direct documentation in our general guide. All right. Okay, on to the next section here. So now we have base maps, and generally we have a set of ready-to-use authoritative maps that can be used in the API of your choice with just a couple lines of code. So, I mean, base maps, they're the base of your application, obviously. So we don't try to make it difficult to just have a base map in your app if that's all you really want. We have dozens of pre-styled base maps designed by a professional team of cartographers. We've got all sorts of different styles. So, and in fact, just if you're curious, there is actually a specific base maps talk that I'll be doing tomorrow as well with one of my colleagues. So yeah, so I'll get into a lot more of the nitty-gritty details of that. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. You could have interrupted me.
I did.
You didn't know.
I was watching.
You were watching yep, exactly. Thank you. Sorry about that, guys. Well, now you have the visuals. There you go. Yeah, and so you are able to, one other cool thing you can do with our base map styles service, because they are vector tiles, you can use our vector tile style editor, which if you're not familiar with, it's pretty cool. You get to make maps in a way that look the way you want them to. So you can change the colors, the fonts, the icons, yeah, you get to change the size of things. It's really cool. And you can even access the JSON directly. So if you wanted to, for some reason, use it the JSON instead of actually just taking the, say, item ID and plugging it in, you could do that. Okay, so now we're going to get into the newest base map service. So we've got our static base map tiles service. I did a quick little demo on stage earlier. I'm going to do a little bit more of a demo here right now. But yeah, so basically, we've been told that many of you like our vector tiles. And the feedback is really that you like the flexibility of the pre-styles, the language options, the frequent updates. So we had been asked, and I'm not sure for how long, but I do know we've been asked by several developers that they specifically need base maps in the form of images or tiles or PNGs even. So that's exactly what this service offers. So yeah, it's designed to provide on-demand generation of static tiles that are really just from our vector tiles. So they are a rasterized representation of them. They can be, you can have your preferred language with them, but I believe that's a limited option right now. Mm. Yeah, I think there's a subset of them currently, but I think eventually we'll get more. Use cases, lightweight applications, maybe older devices, or honestly, maybe your tech stack in your application is already so advanced and just kind of complex, like a complex rendering system, that maybe you don't want to add those vector tiles to it and you just want to add some PNGs because it's much more lightweight. Okay, so these are 2 really quick, short little demos. Okay, so this first one it's really simple. This is a simple Esri leaflet app that I have. Excuse me. And let's see here. Yeah, so basically, I can just show you a little bit of the code. It's really straightforward. All I had to do, since it's Esri leaflet, I brought an Esri leaflet through CDN. I have also used some CalSci components. But essentially, the meat of the code, let me zoom in, is right here. And it's really just this. So, and this is pretty new too, in terms of, I think it's even slightly newer than when the release of the actual static basemap tile service was released. We added a static basemap tile layer plugin to Esri leaflet. So it's kind of nice because you're able to, in just really a few lines of code, use a static basemap tile, or static tiles basemap really, within your Esri leaflet application. And just for fun, I'll show you. I showed this earlier on screen, but yeah, you're able to actually directly see that these images are being loaded, like I said, as PNGs. So these are actually the different tiles of the service. It says that it's being served as a PNG here, and I can open one up, and we see it. Individual tiles, and of course, as you zoom, it's going to load more. So it only loads exactly what you need as well. Okay. And then the other one, this is just a little fun one. And this actually, okay, so this is a React Native app. So I designed this in such a way that doesn't actually use a map, like a mapping software or like a mapping library, I should say, at all. It's because these tiles are PNG images. I just decided to say, well, why don't I just bring them in as their literal images, just so we can see like a tile grid of them. So I'm just going to search for a location. Let's try just DC. And I've just used our geocoding service for that, by the way. All right. And yeah, now we can see I've made the grid, a 2x3 grid here of tiles of Washington, D.C. It gives the location here. You can change the zoom level if you want, and it'll adjust it on the fly. And you can click on one of these tiles too. It'll open up. It'll tell you the basemap style, the zoom level, and then it actually gives you the tile numbers. And I'm not going to get into the code too, really, because it's a little convoluted, but essentially what you do is you have to take the latitude and longitude, you do a bit of interesting math that turns it into these tile numbers. So that's what's happening behind the scenes with our static basemap tile service. It's not like really complicated mathematics. It's something I was able to just research real quick and find. But yeah, so it's just a little bit of a conversion and you're able to create those tiles. I also made it to where you can change the style as well, just for fun. All right, I've got just a little bit more, and then I'll stop talking. Okay, let's see. Perfect. Okay, so we have a places service that's been around for a little bit. Oh, I forgot to mention the static basemap tile service is location platform specific. This one also is location platform specific. Yeah, and we've got many different POIs worldwide. We do have an actual base map that embeds these POIs, as well as a places service that you can use in conjunction with it. Yeah, and that essentially you can connect the two with, and I believe it's called an ID value, but yeah. And yeah, there's dozens of attributes, things like ratings, opening hours, obviously address, social media handles, that kind of stuff. Okay. All right. This is the last service I'll be talking about before I hand it over to Russell. We've got our new elevation service. So this is also location platform specific. And this is also really pretty new. It's a very focused service that allows you to retrieve elevation values anywhere around the world. Basically, you just simply need a point, and you can get like your XY point, and you can get the Z value associated with it. So in a sense, you can think about it as like if you're only working with 2D data, or you're trying to get something that's 2D and turn it into like a 3D kind of more experience, you can get that third dimension. Yeah, you can use it for elevation profiles, terrain mapping, route planning. And it does have two different elevation heights. We've got orthometric and ellipsoidal. All right. Oh, and orthometric measures heights from mean sea level, and then ellipsoidal measures heights from a mathematically defined surface that approximates the shape of the Earth. Okay. Okay, so here's my last demo that I'm going to show you. This is a fun little demo I put together with our elevation service and the ArcGIS Maps SDK for JavaScript. Okay, so first of all, this demo does use the orthometric elevation values, and it's a map in San Francisco, and I built this to determine the metrics along a walking path. So basically here I can click on the map to select two different points. All right, and after I do that, I am shown the orthometric value over here. Here, I'll zoom in a bit so maybe you can see it a bit better. There we go. Okay, so I'm shown the orthometric elevation value over in the right-hand corner. Yeah, and then I also can see the app's total ascent, descent, average upward gradient, and total distance there. And so this gives you a little bit of insights into, say, maybe the walking path difficulty, potentially. Yeah, let's look at a little bit of the code. Okay. So the first thing is I do need to use the elevation service endpoint along with my coordinates and my API key. Yeah, and once I've done that, I get my result of my Z value. And then for each point along the route, the orthometric elevation is calculated and put into an array. Now, one thing I should mention here is when I made this demo, this was actually like later last year. This was before we released the at many points option within the elevation service. So now we actually have that option. So you could actually use that instead of this. It would theoretically be a bit faster because it would be able to solve that, all at once instead of individually. But yeah, still works the same way. Yeah, so then it does calculate the total ascent or descent, and finally the average upward gradient. Okay, so before I hand it over to Russell, I just want to say one other thing real quick. A lot of these demos that I've shown you today, I've taken them to kind of the next level, adding in a fun little bit of AI. And just so you know, I did create a fun little video series on YouTube. It's on my personal channel. So if you're curious, it's the AI-powered mapping for the ArcGIS Web Developer Series. So check it out. Cool. And Russell, it is your time.
Awesome. Let me switch to my screen here. So I'm going to keep moving this story forward, and we're going to talk about a handful of additional location services. The first one that I'm going to talk about is data hosting. So as ArcGIS developers or folks who have been working with Esri from some time, you're probably aware that you could host data in ArcGIS Online or Enterprise. And the same is true for ArcGIS Location Platform. So I can take data that I have, visualize it, edit it, create it, analyze it, and it's all done in a secure, scalable, and performant way. In a lot of ways, if you've worked with hosted data from ArcGIS Online before, the data hosting services through ArcGIS Location Platform are going to be very, very familiar to you. So what I thought would be interesting to do is see a little bit of a demonstration on one of the ways that we could actually use the hosted data. So I'm going to open up my first demo here. And what I'm going to be able to do is actually take data that I have stored on my machine. I have some information about some customers. And what I'm going to try and do here is create a choropleth map and map this to some other data set that I have. In my case, my data doesn't have the full name, but it does have the abbreviation. I can pick the field that contains that data, the information I want to summarize, which is the average spend. And let's just take the sum of all those values, and I'll hit apply. And pretty quickly, I get this data back. I could also do this at a different level of detail. So maybe I actually want to use the zip code information that I have. So I'll switch to zip. Let's make this the minimum, let's say, and I'll hit apply. And that also comes back pretty quickly, even at the zip code level here. So how did I do this? What is actually getting, like, where is data hosting coming into this application? It's actually not with the data that I'm aggregating. What I've hosted in my location platform account is sort of two things. One, I have the actual boundary data sets themselves. And one of the things that I've done to make this more performant is take care of some of the settings that you can enable on this layer. So I've changed the cache control so that it lasts for up to an hour. I've added an index on some of these fields that I want to use, things that'll help me get performance when I need to make those queries back and forth. And then in order to build the little user interface that I just have a table that I'm hosting as well. So the data hosting doesn't have to be points, lines, polygons. You could host tables. And in my user interface, I'm just grabbing some information. So what should I use to display the name of this data set? What field does it get aggregated on? And what's its URL? And ultimately, that's what's being used to draw or get these polygons back. When it comes to summarizing the data, I actually found this was relatively straightforward. And that's by using a CSV layer. So the little trick that I'm doing here is actually to read the CSV data and create a CSV layer in the Maps SDK. And what we're able to do is run a statistics query. So once that data is loaded in, we can use the query features method on that, just like we would do with hosted data, to get the summary statistics that we need back. I can create an arcade expression from that I then pass into a renderer. And if you want a sense for what that arcade expression looks like, maybe I'll switch back to states so that it's not terribly long. I'll hit apply. And if I just look into what I've logged out here, I put this in here, you can see, maybe it's a little unclear, but I basically get a lookup dictionary where I just say, hey, I've gotten this summary statistics from my CSV layer. It has the state code that I want to use and the choropleth value. And that's enough to actually get this map running. So it's pretty straightforward for you to use data hosting, not just as a way that you could store and manage a user's data or your data, but you can also do these client-side, I don't want to say join because I haven't actually joined anything together, but use the capabilities of the Maps SDK in concert with the data that you're hosting to build some dynamic applications that allow a user to explore and interact with their data. The next service I want to talk about are the demographics and segmentation, the geo-enrichment data that's available to you through ArcGIS Location Platform. And this point that there are thousands of variables is a bit of an understatement, maybe. There are many thousands of variables that you can use here.
I'm always amazed by that.
It's not just, we talk about it as demographics data, but it's not just what is the population in this area. It's what is the number of households that have 2 or more dogs? How many people bought an Xbox, let's say, in the last 6 months? And you can use all of that to get really detailed insight into the data you have. Enrich your data with it. You can also generate reports and infographics through this service. And I really wanted to show, sort of in the spirit of the title of our session, I really wanted to show an example here where we're using this to add value to an application. So just quick straw poll in the room, and if you're watching a recording later, feel free to raise your hand too. How many people here, either now or in the past, worked somewhere that used Salesforce as a CRM? Yeah, that's about, I would say, 90% of the folks here. So what I thought would be interesting is to actually see how we can use this service inside of Salesforce itself. So for the demonstration, I'm actually going to open up my Salesforce org here. And I'm going to go into an account. I'm going to open up the Grateful Heads Pillow Company. Upper right-hand corner here, I'm actually reaching out to the enrichment service, and that was pretty quick. I'll zoom in. When this page loaded, I grabbed the record ID and the latitude and longitude of this account that I'm looking at right now. And I passed that as a study area to the enrichment service. And I now have back about this account some detailed information about a 15-minute, 30-minute, and 45-minute drive time buffer around this specific location. And if you think about the thousands of different variables that are available here, you could make this really tailored to a lead, an account, a contact, whatever that kind of record might be, to start enriching the data that's in Salesforce. And there are a lot of great plugs here. So for example, if I want to change the data, the way this is set up, I'm going to open up the data browser. This is a really valuable tool if you're going to use the enrichment service that's in the developer documentation. So I can come in here and select some additional characteristics. I'm just going to take behaviors, and we will take the top 3 that are there. I can copy this as a CSV, and then back in Salesforce, I can configure my component, and we'll actually just replace, I guess, the variables that are there with the new data I'm interested in. I'm going to switch this to miles, hit save, and go back to my page. And now I'm going to get that updated perspective. I'm now getting the driving miles instead of the driving time. And I've got those new characteristics that I requested from the enrichment service. And so you can build these reusable components. It's pretty straightforward, and we'll show just a little bit of the code. I know some of this might be relatively new if you haven't worked with a Lightning Web component before. One thing that I would say is you should know that these components are made up of, at a minimum of 3 core files. You have an HTML file that defines the component itself, some JavaScript that defines the behaviors, and a metadata file. So the component itself, we have these things that Salesforce Lightning Web Components call directives. And that's how I'm changing the behavior between showing that little loading spinner and showing the completed result that's come back. I can also use directives to do things like for each, what I'm calling a tab detail, but this is that radius. And for each result in that, create a new component. You can create custom components that you embed inside of others. So I have one that's formatting the data depending on whether I get currency information back, an index or ratio, metadata that's available from the service. In terms of interacting with that, the real key here is that I have some properties that I can receive. The record ID is going to come from the component itself. These properties for the travel mode, the analysis variables, are what I configured in Salesforce. And every time the record ID changes, which in my case, that's what that $sign indicates. In my case, that's only going to be when this page loads. I'm going out to the enrichment service, getting some data back, and populating those tabs with the results. All told, this is a relatively straightforward use case of enrichment data. But again, when you think about the wide breadth of the services or the wide breadth of content, perhaps it's places or other things that we could do here, there's a lot of opportunity to not just build apps from the ground up, but build components like this that extend your other business systems.
Yeah, I could see integrating many other services. Yeah, that's cool.
So again, that was the sort of last or final demonstration that we have for you today. If there's one thing to keep in mind, it's that ArcGIS Location Platform gives you access to an extensive set of location services with powerful capabilities. And we're constantly working to enhance the offerings that are there, add new services that provide additional value, and make it easier for you to continue to do the good work that you do. So with that, I want to open it up to questions and thank everyone for being here. We'll throw the survey slide up again in a moment, but if you do leave before we get there, please don't forget to fill that out. So thank you.
Thank you. Please.
And questions? Helen, any questions? I even warned you that I would throw it to you.
Okay, a couple questions then.
Yeah, let's go.
So, if I'm a developer just starting, what do I get from Esri to learn how to do this?
Great question. So the question for everyone is, if I'm just getting started, what are the resources? Effectively, what do I get from Esri to help me get started?
I will say, tomorrow I'm doing a demo theater that is called Developer Resources, essentially like everything you can get as a developer, Esri developer. But anyways, that was another...
I think that makes you very well qualified to answer this question then.
Yeah, so I mean, the number one place would be developers at arcgis.com at least. You know, if you know you're a developer trying to develop with Esri technology, I would say start there. If you already know exactly what you're developing with, whether it's like online or location platform or whatever it may be, we do have general guides that can guide you through that specific like landscape that you're in, you know. So if you are a location platform developer, we have like specific tabs that you can use now too. And again, these are the general guides. Like,
do you want me to switch to your screen?
Back. Yeah, I could just show that really quick.
Which one are you?
5, sorry. Okay, so when you go to the developer's website, and we actually, since last Developer Summit, or when it was called Developer Summit, so now since that last event, we have actually completely overhauled developers at ArcGIS.com, and we had that separation of location platform being its own now sign-in experience site and everything. And location platform actually now has within location.arcgis.com, you've got mostly just like your overall account information with like billing and how much usage you've done and your like data hosted, that kind of stuff. And then there's a button at the top in location platform, which I guess I should open that up too now. I guess I could sign in real quick. Yeah, I'll just sign it to my personal one. There we go. Yeah, so up here you've got, this is your dashboard, so you've got all this information about that. And then there's a new experience here where if you click My Portal, that takes you to actually an experience that looks very similar to what an ArcGIS Online developer would understand as well. So we, kind of made the experience very familiar to an online developer. So that's more specifically towards location platform, of course. But yeah, so going back to the developer's website, in general, if you just want to see more general developer resources here for a specific, say, whatever service you're using, you can go to each specific service guides. We have a general mapping and location services guide here, and then as you dig into it, it helps specify details about what kind of developer you are and how you can use that service. This is the number one resource, but there are so many more.
I think knowing that there are guides there that you can look at that can help you get started, whether it's with a concept or a service or a particular SDK, and then really rich sets of samples that you can use when you're ready to go a step further. That's a conversation we have a lot when we're walking people through, like getting oriented with what you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
And I would just add, there's also like for many of the services, free tier of usage. So if you're thinking about what do I get access to that helps me get started, you get access to the ability to create an account and start developing right away with very little friction. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So lots of free stuff to start.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about the sandbox? How do people sandbox?
Yeah, like test out some of the different like tutorials and stuff. Yeah. I mean, if you dig into whether you're in the general guide or if you're in a specific SDK, you're going to have tutorials that if it's JavaScript, which I think you and I both are JavaScript developers mostly, right? You'll actually be linked to what's called a code pen. So if you're not familiar with that, it's just an integrated code editor within the web, right? So you open it up and you immediately can see a map if it's a web map in this case. A lot of the other samples, you just plug in your API key and you'll see the experience immediately. And you can play around with the code, of course. In this specific case, since it's a web map, I clicked on one that you'd have to have like a web map ID to then change it. But yeah, you could just change the position of the zoom if you wanted. I think in terms of, resources though, we have so many things that a lot of developers don't necessarily know about too. Like all of these sessions, they are going to be up on MediaSpace later. Maybe you've never heard of our MediaSpace. But yeah, there's videos from all the Esri events up there, which is cool. We do have a YouTube channel as well, which we'll do live streams on. We do live streams with different teams. So we did one with the Calcite team recently. We do have an X account still. We don't have a LinkedIn or Blue Sky yet, but maybe in the future, who knows? But we do release some, new updates and stuff on that account, Esri Devs. And then we also have Esri Dev Events. Esri Dev Events X account right now. There's a lot of stuff going on because of this event. See all the different updates. We have a lot of different resources that you can go to. I could keep talking, but
And if you would like more information, you can check out Courtney's session tomorrow, or if you're listening to the recording,
Yes.
check that recording out as
Oh,
well.
well, no, it won't be recorded 'cause
Oh,
it's a demo
no.
theater.
Okay.
But
Sorry.
sorry. But I'll probably post about it somewhere. Yes.
Any other questions? We'll also be here if you'd rather sort of just come up in one-on-one, ask us a question.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much.
Thanks everyone for attending.